John was only 19 when he enlisted in the American Army. He wanted to serve his country and to fight for freedom and democracy. He was proud to wear the uniform, to carry the US flag, and to follow orders. He was soon deployed to Iraq, to a remote base in the desert. Once there, he saw things he would never forget, things he would never be able to recount. He saw blood and fire, death and destruction, and unbelievable pain and suffering. One evening, while he was on a regular patrol duty, John was wounded in a roadside bomb attack. He lost his left leg and eye. He was flown back to the US, to a military hospital. In the next few weeks, he was discharged from the hospital along with a wheelchair and prosthetics. He was thanked for his service, sacrifice, and bravery, and was honored with a medal by the US government. Over the next few months, John felt more and more alone, angry, depressed, and disillusioned. He felt betrayed and abandoned, as if he had been used and discarded by his country's government. He questioned his purpose, his identity, and even his faith. He wondered why he had to go to war, why he survived, and why he came back. John is just one of the millions of veterans who have suffered from the US presence in the Middle East, a presence that has lasted for decades, cost the US taxpayer trillions of dollars, claimed thousands of lives, and changed the world forever. The Middle East is a region that has been at the center of world history, politics, and culture for thousands of years. It has been plagued by wars, conflicts, and crises for decades. And it is a region that has a huge impact on the global economy, security, and order. In recent years, there has been a great amount of interest in the presence of the United States in the Middle East, and this brings with it a need to answer some questions. What is the role and interest of the US in the Middle East? Why does the US spend billions of dollars and thousands of lives in the region? What are the benefits from and criticisms of the US presence in the region? And what are the challenges and opportunities for the US and the region in the near future? In this video, we will explore these questions and more as we examine the US interest in the Middle East and how it affects the region and the world. The Middle East is a region that encompasses the lands around the southern and eastern shores of the Mediterranean Sea, as well as parts of Asia, Africa, and Europe. The term Middle East came into widespread usage in the early 20th century, replacing the term Near East, which referred to the region nearest to Europe. The Middle East has been the cradle of several ancient civilizations such as Mesopotamia, Egypt, Persia, and Israel. It has also been the site of many conflicts, invasions, and migrations involving various empires, religions, and ideologies. The region today consists of several countries, each with its own history, culture, politics, and challenges. The US has been interested and involved in the Middle East since the late 19th century, when it began to explore and exploit the region's oil and gas resources, which are vital for the world economy and trade. The US also seeks to prevent the spread of weapons of mass destruction, especially nuclear weapons, which could pose a threat to its security and allies. The US also stands with its partners and allies in the region, such as Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, which it says share its values and interests. However, the US involvement in the Middle East has been controversial and criticized by many, both within and outside the region. One of the stated US policy objectives in the Middle East is to ensure the free flow of energy and trade, as the region is rich in oil and gas resources that are vital for the world economy and security. The US has pursued this objective by maintaining a military presence and partnerships in the region, especially in the Persian Gulf, where it has protected the shipping lanes and deterred threats from Iran and other actors. The challenge in meeting this objective is the volatility and instability of the region, which can disrupt the energy and trade flows and create uncertainty and risk for the US and its allies. The region has witnessed several conflicts, crises, and tensions that have affected the energy and trade sectors. such as the Iran-Iraq War, the Gulf War, the Iraq War, the Arab Spring, the Syrian Civil War, the Yemeni humanitarian crisis, the Iran nuclear issue, the Israel-Palestine War, and the Gulf Cooperation Council rift. Another stated US policy objective in the Middle East is to prevent the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, especially nuclear weapons, which could pose a threat to the US and its allies, and destabilize the regional and global order. The US has pursued this objective by imposing sanctions and pressure on Iran, which has been pursuing a nuclear program that the US and others suspect has military dimensions. The US has also supported and participated in the negotiations and agreements that aimed to limit and monitor Iran's nuclear activities, such as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA, which was signed in 2015 by Iran and the P5+1 countries, the US, China, Russia, France, Britain, and Germany. One of the challenges for this objective is the lack of trust and compliance between the US and Iran, and the divergence of interests and views among the regional and international actors. The US withdrew from the JCPOA in 2018 and reimposed sanctions on Iran, accusing it of violating the deal and supporting terrorism and destabilization in the region. Iran responded by reducing its adherence to the deal and increasing its nuclear activities, such as enriching uranium to higher levels and expanding its centrifuges. The US and Iran have engaged in indirect talks to revive the deal, but they have faced obstacles and disagreements over the scope and sequence of the sanctions relief and the nuclear restrictions. The US and Iran have also faced opposition and skepticism from some of their regional and international partners and allies, who have different stakes and perspectives on the nuclear issue. The US also aims to combat terrorist groups such as Al-Qaeda and Islamic State, which have carried out attacks on US soil and interests. The US also competes and counters the influence of rival powers such as Russia, China, and Iran, which have their own agendas and interests in the region. The US has been a staunch ally and supporter of Israel, providing it with military, economic, and diplomatic assistance, and defending it from international criticism and pressure. The US has also tried to mediate and facilitate peace talks between Israel and the Palestinians, and between Israel and its Arab neighbors, such as the Camp David Accords, the Oslo Accords, and the Abraham Accords. However, the US has also been accused of being biased and one-sided in favor of Israel and of enabling and condoning its occupation and colonization of Palestinian lands and its continuous violations of international law and human rights in Gaza. The US has failed to prevent or resolve the recurrent cycles of violence and war between Israel and Hamas, such as the recent ongoing war that started in October 2023 and has resulted in thousands of casualties and hostages, particularly on the Gaza side. The US has been involved in the Syrian civil war since 2011, when it called for the ouster of President Bashar al-Assad and supported the opposition forces and civil society groups that demanded democracy and reform. The US has also led a coalition of countries to fight against the Islamic State, which emerged as a major threat in Syria and Iraq, and to provide humanitarian aid and assistance to the millions of Syrians displaced and affected by the war. However, the US has also faced criticism and challenges for its inconsistent and limited intervention in Syria, and for its lack of coordination and cooperation with other actors such as Russia, Iran, Turkey, and the Kurds. The US has also been unable to stop or end the atrocities and suffering of the Syrian people, or to achieve a political transition and lasting peace in the country. The US has been a partner and ally of Saudi Arabia and the UAE, which have been leading a military intervention in Yemen since 2015 to restore the internationally recognized government of President Abd Rabbuh Mansour Hadi and to counter the Houthi rebels who are backed by Iran. The US has provided the Saudi-led coalition with weapons, intelligence, and logistical support, and has also conducted counterterrorism operations against Al Qaeda and Islamic State affiliates in Yemen. However, the US has also faced condemnation and opposition for its role in the Yemeni war, which has been described as the world's worst humanitarian crisis, with millions of Yemenis facing famine, disease, and displacement. The US has also been accused of being complicit in the war crimes and human rights violations committed by the Saudi-led coalition, such as indiscriminate airstrikes, blockades, and torture. The US has been a friend and sponsor of the Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, which is a regional organization of 6 Arab states: Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. The US has cooperated with the GCC on various issues such as security, energy, trade, and counterterrorism, and has maintained military bases and assets in the region. However, the US has also been challenged and disappointed by the GCC rift, which erupted in 2017 when Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, and Egypt severed diplomatic and economic ties with Qatar, accusing it of supporting terrorism and aligning with Iran. The US has tried to mediate between the GCC members, but has also faced difficulties and contradictions in balancing its interests and relationships with the different parties, and in maintaining a unified and effective approach to the activities in the region. American involvement in the Middle East has been controversial and criticized by many, both within and outside the region. Some of the criticisms are: America has supported authoritarian regimes and dictators such as the Shah of Iran, Saddam Hussein, Hosni Mubarak, and the Saudi monarchy, which have oppressed and violated the human rights of their people. America has intervened militarily in the region, such as in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, and Syria, which have resulted in civilian casualties, instability, and humanitarian crises. America has been biased and one-sided in its support for Israel, which has occupied and colonized Palestinian lands and violated international law and human rights. At the time of recording this video, the genocide in Gaza that started in October 2023 has continued for over 4 months now, and thousands of innocent people, including children, are losing their lives every day. But the US has continued to offer its support to Israel, completely ignoring the stance of most countries all over the world, which have called for a ceasefire immediately. The US has imposed sanctions and pressure on Iran, which has harmed its economy and people and prevented a peaceful resolution of the nuclear issue. The US has ignored or undermined the aspirations and demands of the people in the region, such as during the Arab Spring, which sought democracy, dignity, and social justice. America has provided economic and humanitarian aid to the region, such as in the aftermath of natural disasters, wars, and pandemics. America has actively tried to promote peace and diplomacy in the region, such as in the Camp David Accords, the Oslo Accords, the Iran nuclear deal, and the Abraham Accords. America has fostered and facilitated cultural and educational exchanges and cooperation with the region, such as through scholarships, grants, and programs. America has encouraged and assisted the development and reform of the region, such as in the fields of health, education, governance, and civil society. America has vital interests in the Middle East, such as ensuring the free flow of energy and trade, preventing the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, combating terrorism, supporting its allies, and countering its rivals. American withdrawal from the region could create a power vacuum that could be filled by hostile or unstable actors such as Iran, Russia, China, or extremist groups, which could threaten the regional and global security and order. American presence in the region could provide a deterrent and a balance of power, as well as a platform for diplomacy and cooperation that could help resolve or manage the conflicts and crises in the region, such as the Israel-Palestine issue, the Iran nuclear issue, the Syrian civil war, the Yemeni humanitarian crisis, and the Gulf Cooperation Council rift. The US has overstretched its resources and capabilities in the Middle East and has neglected and sometimes failed to address the more pressing challenges and opportunities elsewhere, such as in Asia, Europe, or the Americas. American intervention in the region has been counterproductive and costly, both in terms of lives and money, and has resulted in more harm than good, both for the US and the region, such as by causing civilian casualties, instability, and resentment. The US withdrawal from the region could empower and incentivize the regional actors to take more responsibility and ownership for their own security and stability, and to seek more constructive and peaceful solutions to their problems without relying on or blaming the US. This brings us to the end of our video. We hope you enjoyed and learned from this video, and that it gave you some insights and perspectives on the US presence in the region and how it affects the region and the world. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below and we will answer them as soon as possible. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to get notified of our latest uploads.